All right. Good evening, everybody. We're going to call our Monday, January 27th, 2025 Business Services meeting to order. We have no citizen comments this evening, so we're going to jump right into for discussion. So first item on our list, the Mid-Valley Financial Report for December 2024.
So please note that the beginning fund balance on the financial report has been updated after their completion of their prior year audit. So Mid-Valley is reporting that revenue continues to trend ahead of the prior year, and expenditures are just starting to trend ahead as well, but there are no areas of concern at this time.
Okay. Seeing nothing, we're going to move on to item B, our D303 financial report for December 2024.
So both revenue and expenditures are just under 50% of the year-to-date budget, and they're trending very close to the prior year, and there are no areas of concern at this time.
All right. Moving on to item D, our budget calendar for fiscal year 2025-2026. What do I skip C? I skip C. Moving backwards to C, designation of individuals to prepare our fiscal year 2025-2026 budget.
So Illinois School Code states that an individual is to be designated to prepare the tentative budget each year. Historically in this district, that person has been the chief operating officer or previously the assistant superintendent for business services. We would recommend that the board designate that position to continue to develop the tentative budget for fiscal year 26.
Do you have any one person in mind?
This needs to go to for action. We can't put this to consent. So there's going to be people abstaining.
If you don't agree, then I'm a little concerned.
Okay, so for consent. All right, so now on to item D, our budget calendar.
So the key dates for the 25-26 budget process are outlined in the packet. The items involving board action are in bold. The budget sheets with allocations will be distributed to the cost center administrators in February, and the budget allocations will be based on the year 2 data that was presented last year as part of the 5-year projections. The salary and benefits budgets will be refined in June and incorporated in the final draft of the budget that will be presented to the board in July. And then the notice of the public hearing will be published in August with the hearing and adoption of the budget to take place in September.
Okay. We're going to go about our same process that we did last year. So again, by department, so that everybody's aware of that process. I think we had really good feedback from that last year. And I think we produced a great budget. We had public comment and we didn't have any feedback on it. So it's always a positive. Okay.
Yeah, since we completed that full process.
Yep.
We will likely condense that down, so it's not stretching across 4 different meetings. We'll condense that into 1 or 2 meetings.
Yeah, I think there's probably going to be a couple of areas of the budget where we've been having some discussions on spend that will be probably bigger meetings. So, okay. Any other items on the calendar? No? Okay. Moving on to item E, I'm going to go by the alphabet here. 2025-2026 school fees.
So historically, we review school fees for the following school year every January. This year, we included the proposed school fees in your board packet. Any changes are highlighted in red, but I'll walk through those with you in just a second. We only increased fees where necessary, either based on vendor cost increases or because internal costs of running programs are increasing. So all-day kindergarten is actually the most exciting thing to talk about because we are proposing a 33% decrease for all-day kindergarten fees. Next year, we will be bringing a similar decrease, and then the following year, it will be 0 because we will be required by state law to offer all-day kindergarten at no cost. So we're stair-stepping down. The registration fees, we increased just by $5 because those have not increased since pre-pandemic, and all of our costs are starting to increase, all of the materials and everything that we buy at elementary, middle, and high. So we're proposing a $5 increase for each of those levels. There's a new fee that the athletic departments requested, a replacement fee for unreturned athletic uniforms. So if a student does return, say, a basketball uniform, they'll be charged for the exact replacement cost of a basketball uniform that we would need to purchase to replace that.
Real quick on that one, do we have to have, when we adopt these fees, do we have to have that itemized for the adoption of it, or?
We do not.
Okay.
No. So as it's listed where it varies with the actual cost of the uniform,
That
that's
covers us.
sufficient.
Okay.
Yeah. So as soon as we're invoiced for a new uniform cost, that will determine what the actual amount charged is.
Okay.
Is that something that we would be able to put in that particular sports information when they first initiate activity with that sport? So the parent is aware that that might be coming, and maybe hopefully that would help them return it.
If we have that information, if we haven't replaced uniforms in several years, we may not have the exact replacement cost of the uniforms. But if we have that information, we can provide it.
Or just at least that that's a procedure that
We
we're
can
gonna
make
do.
a statement that
Okay.
if a uniform is not replaced, that the parent will be charged.
Okay, just so it's not a surprise later. Awesome, thank you.
AP tests typically go up $1 every year, so we're proposing that increase. Culinary arts courses have never had a course fee, but the cost of food is drastically increasing, and it's starting to eat away at some of our budgets. So the high schools have asked that we institute course fees for the culinary arts courses. The 3D media courses, they requested a $5 increase for those because the cost of ceramic is going up. We aligned the part-time dual credit enrollment, the per credit hour cost with what ECC is increasing to for next year. And then the final one is graduation, which is proposed at $60 for next year, which is pretty much the exact cost of the cap and gown medallion programs for the graduates, diplomas, and the diploma covers that are provided to the students.
Can you tell us, there's been some discussion about graduation and being at NIU. I've seen it posted on social media and people being unhappy that it's NIU. Can you, what's it cost for us to be there, and who pays for that and that kind of
Yeah,
thing?
I'll have to pull that exact cost. I know the first year, we're at the end of a 5-year agreement with NIU. In year 1 of the agreement, it was $16,000, which I believe is a significant savings from what it was when it was at the Sears Center. I'm not sure, that cost was scheduled to increase slightly each year, so I would need to look to see what we paid in the most recent year. And obviously,
I'm sorry, can you repeat, what was the cost? What?
16,000.
I thought you said 60,000. I was
No,
going to say,
One-
that's back
1.6.
up at the Sears
Yeah,
Center
sorry.
fees.
1.6.
16 makes more sense. I was hoping you said that.
Yeah, that was year 1 at NIU. But I'll have to pull the information for the most recent year, and then we'll have those costs. There will likely be a new agreement with NIU that's coming to the board at the end of this year, since we're in our final year of the agreement. So we'll have the 5-year cost laid out for the future 5 years.
Mrs. McCabe, can I ask you, has the objection been to NIU, or has it been to the fact that it's during the week?
Well, both, believe me, I just read about it. Nobody called me. Why do we have to drive to DeKalb?
Yeah.
And I think it's also, people don't realize where we used to have to
Yeah.
drive to, and how much that was costing us, because it was the Sears Center in Schaumburg. And I remember when the board decided to go to NIU,
Yeah,
and
the
the
cost savings
was
were dramatic.
tremendous. But people were disparaging about where to eat in DeKalb, so they were looking at
Yeah.
all those things, but I think it's saving the district, and we're not charging families for that cost, and you can have everybody there. Those are the kinds of things I think
Yeah,
families
no,
have to realize.
I agree with that. I just, I know that when we went to NIU and then they had shifted us to a weekday, that was when I heard the big hue and cry, and understandably so. So are we continuing to look to see if they have something, weekend times available?
I would need to talk with our high schools about that. I'm not sure. I can't speak to that.
Okay, Oh, sorry.
Can you please do that? It really, the way we've set it up today, it really does not give a lot of consideration to working parents, first of all. It also doesn't give consideration to our other students. It's usually in the middle of finals, and if you have siblings in high school, it's a late night.
Well,
Yeah.
there are a couple other considerations as well. For teachers, it's certainly a long day for teachers and administrators as well. But also, it does interfere because of the timing of it. It interferes with, for example, advanced placement tests. Some people sometimes have to make a choice between going to graduation or taking their AP test, and that's a tough choice to force. So if we can get that onto weekends, that would be, I think,
Yeah,
advantageous.
if that's something that we wanted to explore, this is probably the ideal time.
I was going to ask that is, what day specifically is already, we're going to make that decision when we lay out the contract. So those dates of Monday or Thursday or whatever it's going to be was decided when okay. So we might have some flexibility with that. That's good, because that's definitely something I heard. But again, something that Mrs. McKay brought up is that I think people didn't realize that being able to have it at NIU enables more family to attend and more tickets, whereas if we had it in one of our own facilities, we just don't have the room for it. So I appreciate that clarity. I do have one quick question about school fees if you're done. Okay. I just wanted to say, if you could remind the audience how, if someone is needing, how they apply for any kind of waiver for any of that, who do they call? Do they call the district? Do they call their school? Can you just explain that? Thank you.
Anyone can always call their school offices or the business office. Really, the fee waivers run through the business office. The forms are all available online. If someone needs to come in and we need to help them walk them through it, we're more than happy to do that. But the process is fairly straightforward. But actually, that would probably be my first recommendation, is they call the district office and talk to someone in the business office first.
Okay, awesome. Thank you so much. I appreciate that your staff is willing to help them through it if they have issues also. That's really great.
Before we move off fees, I'm compelled to ask the following question. We have all-day kindergarten without fees in the 28 school year. Is that right?
That is correct.
That is in reaction to a state mandate. Has the state made available to districts like ours any additional revenue source through the state outside of our normal levy process to fund that?
No. The only thing that's been discussed at the state level is potential funding for construction of facilities if it requires additional space. But revenue lost from actual program fees has not been discussed currently at the state.
So we've had conversations at this table about this particular fee many times, and there is a substantial cost. So there will have to be a budget offset. So I'll be looking for the budget offset through the course of the 33% reduction that you referenced this year and the additional 33% in the coming year as we have those budget discussions through the course of the calendar. Thanks.
Okay, good discussion. Justin, anything else for fees? Okay, we're gonna move on to item F, our multi-site AC improvements phase 2.
Last summer, phase 1 of our multi-site cooling project was completed, providing air conditioning to gymnasiums and community rooms at East High School, Thompson Middle School, Anderson, Coron, Belgraham, and Norton Creek Elementaries. This summer, phase 2 will provide cooling to the gym at the Haines Center, as well as the gyms and community rooms at Davis, Munhall, Wild Rose, Richmond, Wasco, Fearscombe Creek, and Fox Ridge Elementary Schools. The equipment was already pre-purchased for the summer through Hell Mechanical in this past fall through the Equalis contract. But earlier this month, bids were received for the labor and material bids for this work. The project was broken into 3 packages, allowing contractors to provide pricing individually for specific packages. This allowed the district to better vet and understand the pricing that was coming through per site. 4 contractors provided bids on all 3 packages. However, 1 contractor withdrew their bid after opening due to a misunderstanding of scope, resulting in a substantial miscost. So with that, F.E. Moran was the lowest and responsible bidder for all 3 packages. After an extensive vetting process, administration is recommending award to F.E. Moran in the amount of $3,884,245 in a total for all 3 packages.
Amanda, the only The only question I had was regarding the ductwork, like the change from flexible or too flexible from the other one. Can you just give a little bit about that?
The insulated ductwork comes in two different types. One is the rigid standard ductwork that you see, similar to what we showed last summer for East High School. The other option is a sock. It's called like a sock duct. It's it's a flexible material, fabric material, and it's actually what we currently have in many of our elementary gyms. So it's repeating that process when we selected that alternate. It's just an upgraded version that provides better insulation, so that when we're pumping the cold air through it, we don't get condensate dripping onto the floors.
Thank you. Any questions on this one, guys? No? All right.
Actually, one quick question. How many more phases are there to this process of the air conditioning?
Yeah, so you might notice that North High School and Redling have not been completed or mentioned in here yet. We are starting work this summer at North and Redling in the gyms, specifically in the ductwork. However, the equipment won't arrive in time to be complete by the end of the summer. So actually, just today, I started scheduling with North High School. We're gonna still tackle the ductwork in the gym because the gym is shut down for the summer in co-assigning with replacing the gym floors at North. So we're gonna knock all that out so that when the equipment arrives, it'll be minimal disruption to the school. It'll primarily be in mechanical rooms and outside. And a similar story for Redling.
That's awesome. I look forward to that being all wrapped up. I'm sure you do as well, but thank you for the
Yeah,
update.
thank you. And so just to reiterate, though, the cooling at Redling and North won't be complete by the end of the summer, but we'll be in that process, so, thank you.
All right, let's move this one to consent. Okay. All right, moving on to item G, our North High School fire panel replacement.
So the existing panel at North High School, fire panel at North High School, is original to the building and over 25 years old, fairly exceeding the existing life, or the lifespan of 15 to 20 years. The existing system was still working, but with the system being discontinued in 2018, parts and knowledge from our technicians is becoming hard to come across, and so we're in need of replacing this panel. Staff engaged in conversations with Siemens through the Omnia contract. We did this because as part of this project, we are anticipating keeping all of the horns and the visual devices that are in the building, but just replacing the panel, as well as some communications loops. And in order to do this, we had to work with the Siemens directly. So after several different coordination events, we received a proposal in the amount of $122,512.82 through the Omnia contract to complete this work this summer.
Do you see any other facilities needing this in the near future?
Yeah, yes. Many of our facilities have dated fire panels, similar to previous conversations with our parking lots and our roofs and all those things. We are really gearing, at least one per year is needed to keep up with the amount of buildings that we have.
Part of our capital improvements plan. I think we can move this one to consent as well. Okay. Moving on to item H, Davis Wasco LRC shelving replacements.
So as previously highlighted in 2021 as part of the Educational Facilities Planning Committee recommendation to the boards, one of the very high do now items was working in the learning resource centers to improve the environments, to create a multifunctional and accessible spaces that really go along with the diverse activities that happen within those spaces. So this year, efforts have been concentrated at Davis and Wasco to start replacing some shelving and updating the furniture within the spaces. The new shelving allows more flexibility in the space, typically on casters, allowing it to move around and flex for the building's needs. And so this year, while it is not a complete remodel of the LRCs by any means, the shelving will definitely provide new life to the spaces and allow for more flexibility. So the attached proposal totals $47,185.52 for shelving at both spaces. And we do anticipate additional furniture replacements in these spaces as well over the few years, but this is our first step.
Awesome. Can you remind us what's next after Wasco and Davis?
There isn't a defined schedule for the LRCs at this point. We started conversations with several other, many of our LRCs are in need of new furniture just for that flexibility, but conversations have started with several other LRCs.
Okay, very good. Any questions on this one? I think we can move it to consent.
Okay.
All right, item I, our legal services review.
Yes, administration is seeking consensus from the board to continue legal services with Hodges as our primary legal counsel and forego an RFP process to seek additional legal services by outside vendors than Hodges. Administration and the board both did a review of the legal services, and by all accounts, it appears that we're satisfied with this selection, but I just needed the board to give me consensus to move forward.
Sounds good.
Just to clarify, though, based on documentation in the packet, you are recommending to continue.
Yes,
Administration
so I
is.
appreciate that. Thank you. We are recommending Hodges. Thank you.
We also don't have a RFP or a change in paying for two legal services to do a handover in this current budget, so.
Do we have consensus?
You do?
Okay.
Can I ask one quick question? We had talked about reviewing any services or vendors of, now maybe that's not the perfect word, but that we would be reviewing more than one if we have them. Would there be a next one that we're looking at with business services? I don't really know where we were at with
You
that.
can hold that for our future agenda items, Mrs. Bell.
Ms. Bell, are you thinking about like the audit as an example of one of the services that we have?
Yeah, we had talked about that. Yeah.
Understood, thank
I
you.
just didn't know if we might have a next one coming up.
Yep.
Thank you.
Okay, moving on to item J, our Haines Center project return of unused funds. I'm very excited about it.
So last year, Pepper Construction was awarded the renovation work at Haines Center for the Early Childhood Center. The work was substantially completed on time for the opening of the center, but the remaining punch list items have been resolved. So we're closing out all the documents. So the original award was just under 7.2 million, and it plus an additional 2 change orders were issued during this process. As part of this, were contingencies and allowances that allowed for minor changes to the scope during real time in the construction for an older building for unforeseen conditions. They were carefully monitored, and all expenses that were utilized against or charged against our contingencies allowances were vetted and approved by both myself and Wold Architects. But after a project complete, we're coming back to the table, returning $596,770 of unused funds back to the district. So upon award, we will be closing out the contract and returning these funds.
So I think this can go to consent. Also, right, yeah, no, make it a 4 action so we can vote on it. Okay, that's fine. First of all, I want to thank you guys for the management of this. I know there's overruns on every construction project, and we did have, some of the unforeseen things, but the way that this turned out and the way it was managed was top notch. And so the teams deserve a severe kudos, incredible kudos on it. I mean, this is a great thing for us to be able to put money back into our coffers. So thank you.
Thank you so much. That's awesome. I don't know that I've ever heard of that happening with construction. Do you think that this maybe is also a factor that we had the construction manager just kind of like being a liaison in a more significant hands-on way, or is that completely not relevant?
Absolutely. Even though this money was in the hands of Pepper Construction and they were managing the subcontractors underneath their contract, they were very diligent, really questioning even the smallest of changes to the contract. So I really appreciate the efforts and the time that they put into saving the money on this project and really still making it an exceptional product. So
then that would lead me to think that the money we allocated towards Pepper for the construction manager really was well spent.
absolutely.
It clearly shows that that
Yes.
was,
It was
that's
a
so
great
awesome.
partnership between Pepper and Wold this summer.
Yeah, that's why
much.
we did it that way. That's why we put the construction manager in. So this is the outcome we were hoping for. So,
Right, that was my point. Awesome. Thanks so much.
all right, moving.
Just one quick one. With those surplus funds, do we have any idea of what you might have them earmarked for?
I'll tell you in March when I bring back my capital plan update. Never a
It's not-
shortage of
not
items
until-
to be addressed.
Not until March, and then we also have the multilingual other stuff, so. Okay. All right. That moves us to item 3 on the agenda, adjournment. So I've already heard of future agenda items from Mrs. Bell about potential other services that we're looking at. We can look into that. Are there any other future agenda? Oh, yes, and I have to mention, next month's business services meeting will be combined with L&T on the 24th. So it'll be kind of the outcome of our AROI process in that meeting. So another combined meeting there.
And it will be, we will be looking at the dual language program.
Yes. Yep. Any other ones? That is the big one.
And just to clear, we will also revisit the math curriculum discussion too? Okay.
I just want to reiterate that it will be a long meeting then, because we are adding that, we were focused that February would be the dual language. Discussion had to be cut short. We know there needs to be more talked about by math, but please come prepared. The business services will be done in 3 minutes, but the rest could.
I'd also like to suggest that we do the math after the multilingual, because I'm assuming that we'll have members of the public here for the multilingual piece. And so.
Well, if you could let Mr. Kuchar and I meet with Dr. Igo, and we'll let you know how
Okay.
that looks, because it could be that the math discussion could be over fairly quickly, and let our math people head home. But
Yeah, and I did make note of the 3 pending questions that we had. A few board members had pending questions, and we had a couple of talking points. I don't think it'll be particularly long, but if there are any other questions that were unanswered, please get them to us, and we'll make sure that it's part of that.
Rock and roll. Okay. Thank you very much, everybody. Happy Monday. And we're going to draw our meeting to conclusion at 5:59.